All right, everybody, it's time to rock and roll. I just want to welcome everybody to tonight's Road to Success. Tonight, we're going to be discussing audits, and I guess I have to go back, hit rewind. I'm Morris Claremont for the PTA, Vice President for Leadership Development. Thank you for joining us tonight. Tonight, we're going to be discussing audits, and basically, it's just going to be a review of sharing information about audits, and just some general overall stuff, and get down into the nitty-gritty. And at this time, I would like to take the opportunity to introduce our EC members and our BOD members. And I'm just going to go left to right from what I see on the screen. And so we'll start with Melanie Williams, our Florida PTA Secretary.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Thank you.
And Jude Bruno, Florida PTA Treasurer.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome. Look forward to the presentation.
All right, and then for our board of directors, Felita Tett.
Good evening, everyone.
And Kay Hawkins.
Good evening, everyone.
And I don't think I see anyone else, so that's probably it. So at this time, we're going to turn it over to Kimberly Adamski.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here and joining us tonight. We have our amazing staff, Heather Tisco with the Membership Data Coordinator. She'll be helping me out with the slides tonight.
Hello.
Thank you, Heather. So as Lauren said, my name is Kimberly Adamski, and I am the Compliance Coordinator at the Florida State PTA office. And as we do with all of our meetings, we start out with the mission of Florida PTA. The PTA mission is to make every child's potential a reality by engaging and empowering families and communities to advocate for all children. The information that we'll provide tonight can be found in your kit of materials, the section $3.00 financial guide and best practices. If you don't have one from last year, you'll get an updated one this year after convention. Please hold your questions to the end of the presentation and you'll get a cookie. So by show of hands, which of course I can't see hands, but by show of hands, how many are overwhelmed with the thought of doing the financial audit? I feel like this is an everybody kind of thing. Well, we're just going to go break it down and to ease your mind, go step by step through the process of doing the audit for your local unit. So why are we doing the financial audit? Well, there's a few reasons. One is that we're a tax exempt organization. We're open to public inspection. We must ensure that we're reporting the use of public charitable dollars and donations in a fiscally responsible manner. We also are required to meet the IRS's 501c3 requirements, as well as Florida PTA compliance requirements, as stated in our local unit bylaws. If you're ever looking for those, that's Article 7, Section 5. And we also want to certify that the PTA books and the records of the treasurer are correct. We want to review and reconcile the checkbook balance with the bank statement and financial account balances. We want to assure our membership, the membership of the association, that their resources and funds are being protected and managed according to financial best practices. We also want to determine which IRS 990 that we must complete. And we must remain in good standing with Florida PTA so we can continue the mission of the PTA. So when is a financial audit conducted? We conduct the financial audit annually at the end of the fiscal year when we receive the last bank statement June 30th. We also would conduct the financial audit if the treasurer resigns during the fiscal year. That would be an interim audit. Anytime the treasurer resigns, the audit must be conducted before the new treasurer takes office, which means no work can be done. If there's ever a time that the PTA funds are suspected to be missing or misappropriated, we do say don't make any accusations or attempt to complete the audit on your own. In this situation, contact your county council, region rep, or Florida PTA for assistance. A few key things to know about the audit is that the fiscal year runs July 1st through June 30th. And although it's not required to do so, other than the treasurer's position, it is best practices to conduct an audit when any board of director member who is a signer on the bank account or who has access to any of the financial accounts resigns. By completing that interim audit, you're protecting the officers of the PTA and should be removing access to all of the financial accounts from those who no longer serve on your board of directors. It's also important to know that before the audit can be done, that all your funds are deposited or transferred into your PTA bank account prior to the close of that fiscal year on June 30th, so that the books can be reconciled accurately. This includes cash on hand, petty cash or cash boxes, whatever they're called in your local unit, checks, PayPal, Stripe, Square, Cash App, Venmo, etc., any of those. But please note, we do want to let you know that Florida PTA highly discourages the use of apps like Cash App or Venmo because they're connected to an individual's phone number and email address. So should you use that, please note that if it's connected to your treasurer or president's personal individual information and they leave, you may find yourself in a very difficult situation trying to get that two-step authentication and get back access of those funds. We always obviously suggest it's better to have, use your check or debit card when making those, or use Member Hub for any of those transactions, as Member Hub does offer a store and auctions. So moving on to who conducts the audit. So the executive board appoints 3 PTA members, and they must be PTA members. They do not have to be members of your local unit. They can be members of another local unit, which we do encourage. You can get another local unit to assist, and you guys could do each other audit, but they must be members of a local unit, and they must be appointed by the executive board. Unless the gross receipts exceed $200,000 for that local unit, you may want to hire an outside accountant or professional auditor to conduct that audit. Members of the audit committee, in order to be a member of the audit committee, you must not have been a signer on the bank account, and you cannot be related or at the same household of the president or treasurer, and you must not have handled any or had access to the funds of the PTA for that fiscal year that you're auditing. This is to ensure that the audit is conducted correctly. Florida PTA does highly recommend that any newly elected incoming treasurers as a member of that audit committee, so that they're aware of what they're going to need when it comes time for their audit at the end of the year and what records to keep. Once the audit committee receives the financial records, they can begin the audit. So how do we do the audit? So if we look at the Florida PTA audit form, it's also found under the form section on the Florida PTA website. You first want to start by completing that on the first page of the audit, the top section. You'll fill in the date, your full name of your PTA, no abbreviations, and the county. We do have 1,400 PTAs. We have 7 Lawton Childs Elementary PTAs. If I don't know the county or you put LCE, I may not know it's you. We want to make sure we're applying the audit to the correct local unit so that you're meeting those Florida PTA compliance requirements. You also want to complete your local ID number. If you don't know your number, you can locate it, or you can't locate it in the treasurer's documents, you can contact your county council, or you can simply put in zeros as long as, again, you put in that full name of your PTA. The audit contact person should be a member of the audit committee. It should be the member of the audit committee who's filling out the form. And they should be available if there's any questions regarding the audit. So please complete the form with that contact's home address, phone number, and email where they can be reached. If they don't hold a board or committee position, it's okay to just put them as the PTA position as a member. You'll also want to complete the name and address of the bank account that you're using for the PTA. That should be found on any one of those bank statements. You want to fill in the year that's being audited. If we're completing the end of the year audit, you'll include the entire fiscal year, which is July 1st through June 30th. If it's an interim audit, you can just kind of cross through that July and just write the month and the year that you're completing the interim audit. Next, we'll move on to Section A, and this is a very important part of the audit. This is where this is a checklist of all the different documents that you'll be using to complete the audit. Please note, though, that it's not all encompassing of the financial records that your PTA may have. And as Florida PTA does not require any local unit to use a specific financial software for accounting, so it may be just their documents on paper through Excel. You may have something like MoneyMinder or QuickBooks. It's just dependent upon what your local unit chooses. So the audit committee should start by reviewing the checklist and going through the treasurer's binder or electronic documents for any of these items on this list. When the document's located, mark the appropriate box that says that is the document you have. And a helpful hint would be to place a little sticky note or a placeholder of where those documents are, because you'll be using them when completing the next section of the audit form. If you're unable to locate some of the items on this list that are highlighted, please reach out to your treasurer for information, guidance, or clarification as needed to perform the audit. As for the highlighted sections, they're very important in order to do any financial review. You need to have all forms of income and expenses, including your PayPal, your Stripe, your Square, anything that they're using that brings money in or spends money on expenses. To complete the information accurately, you must have those documentations. You can't just go by just their ledger or budget or whatnot. As stated earlier, we again highly discourage those apps that are tied to connected to an individual. The electronic banking agreement that's also highlighted here is required by and stated in your bylaws in Article 4, Basic Policies, Section 8. A lot of our local units don't know that. The agreement must be signed by all of the Board of Director members who are issued a debit card. And the form can be found in the form section of financial guides and best practices of the Florida PTA Kit Materials. Additionally, your PTA must have insurance. All PTAs must have insurance. The type of insurance or an amount of coverage is up to your local unit and your school district's requirements. If you're unsure, please contact your county council for those recommendations or requirements. Monthly treasurer's reports. These also must be included in the treasurer's records as required in the bylaws. Again, Article 7, Section 5. That it states the treasurer shall present a financial statement at every meeting of the association and at other times when requested by the Board of Directors, and shall make full report at an annual meeting, hence the annual audit. The budget. The budget must also be included. I know it's not on this list, but it should have been. It must be included in the treasurer's documentation so that the audit committee can review and confirm that the funds were in fact spent in accordance with the membership approved budget. A copy of your 990 should be included in the binder to ensure that the local unit is satisfying and that's IRS requirement from the previous year. Additionally, for those units who file the IRS 990 EZ or the long form, the previous year's 990 should be in there, and it's needed to complete the net asset and balance sheet portion of the upcoming year. So if that's not in there, reach out to your treasurer or your county council or even Florida PTA State Office for a copy of that. Additionally, the last and certainly not least important is the Florida PTA stamped approved bylaws. They should be in the treasurer's binder and on every board of directors binder as they serve as a guide and governance requirements for each local unit. Additional financial documents may be in the treasurer's binders and they're listed here. Again, because local units have different programs and projects, all documentation should be provided in accordance with your best practices as outlined in the financial guide of the kit of materials. If any of the documentation has not been provided or additional information is required by the committee to be able to conduct a fiduciarily responsible audit, it is recommended that the treasurer or members of the local unit's board of directors are contacted to provide the documentation. Additional assistance can be provided by the county council if needed. Now we're going to go on to section B. There are 18 best practices questions that must be answered that pertain to your, as long as they pertain to your PTA. Number 18 is not listed here. We're going to talk about that in a minute. All of these answers, if sections like number 10 and 11, if you did not purchase gift cards, you would just leave that blank. But for all of the other sections that do pertain to your PTA, you would check either yes or no. And if you if you're unable to answer yes for any of the questions, please just include that in the audit findings, which we will talk about a little bit later. So now question 18. we saved that for because that's super, super important is your membership numbers. This question asks, number 18 asks two separate questions. One, how many memberships were sold? Meaning, how many memberships did your local unit sell to your members? And that versus the second part of the question is, how many of those memberships were paid to the state? Do they match? So the real answer here is you'll fill in the blanks for how many were sold and how many that were paid to the state, and you'll answer yes or no. If you answer no to the question, then you want to reach out to, you want to either review the membership reports, or if you find that there's outstanding dues owed to the state at the time of the audit, please be sure to notify the treasurer immediately. It can be due to an oversight in a last minute member or a miscalculation for a prepaid membership dues. If there is not a membership report with the treasurer's report, you may reach out to them as they should be on Member Hub, as the only way to get their membership card is by having their membership through Member Hub. So another few good reasons that your dues are important is because you're entitled to membership benefits from Florida PTA and National PTA, like the Reflections Program and the School of Excellence. Also, the number of paid members that a local unit has determines the voting delegates that they're entitled to at the Florida PTA Convention and Leadership Convention in July. Also, the portion of the membership dues that are paid to the state, they're not included as part of your gross receipts that you report on your 990 long form in your EZ, which can also throw those balances off when you're trying to complete the tax portion. On the bottom of the audit form is the membership section, which we're going to skip for now. So we're moving on to page 2 of the audit form. Excuse me, if you're using the fillable forms from the PTA website, the top portion should already have populated for you when you filled out the portion on page 1. If not, please complete that section. We only ask you to complete it again because in case that the pages get separated. And don't forget to review the checkbook and include the beginning and ending check numbers on the lines provided. Now we're going to get started on the financial portion of the audit form. As you can see here, the financial portion includes the beginning balance, the income, the expenses, outstanding checks, and ending balance for all financial accounts. The PTA, excuse me, the Florida PTA has a great Excel document that can assist you with this portion of the audit. The link, this actual financial account summary, is also on the Florida PTA website and that form section. We'll start by talking about, if you can see it, I know it's kind of small, but putting your beginning balance in row 6, column B, will be the beginning balance from all of your accounts. So if you have multiple savings or checking or PayPal, you'll want to add all of those up and put that in that beginning balance, row 6 section or column B. After you've included all of those, the beginning balance for the total there, then you want to simply just take the time to check your last year's audit form and make sure that that line is matching line 8 of the audit form so that your balance from your previous year aligns with what you're beginning from here. It should say your balance of all accounts on line 8 should match with what you're beginning, your bank balance and all your balances this year. If they do not match, then please note the difference on your audit findings at the end so that the new treasurer, incoming treasurer, can make sure that they're reconciled and balanced. Next, you'll want to review all the income from all the accounts and enter those deposits on row 6, column C, as you can see here. You'll do the same and you'll add up all the expenses and enter that on row 6, column D. If you have any interest that's accumulated from immediately those accounts, you'll put those on row 6, column E. And as you can see here, I know we're not doing this in real time, but it will make the calculations for you and will balance at the end on row 6, column F. So you'll see the totals as you do each line. You'll repeat these for each and every step of your bank statements and all your accounts. And once completed, you'll be able to review them with the checkbooks and the other documents, and you'll be able to add the outstanding checks at the bottom so that matches as well. And then you'll record this amount on row 18, column D for the outstanding checks. Once completed, you look at row 19. The amount on row 19, column C, is the total amount of income and deposits that for the entire year. Once you have that number, you just take it and put it on line 2 of your audit form. It's as simple as that, because it's done all the work for you. You'll do the same for for row 19, column D, for all your expenses for the entire year. You'll take that number and you'll enter that on line 4 of the audit form. Then once you add lines 1 and 2 are populated, then you'll add those two to have your line 3, which is your total cash. And you'll subtract lines 4 from line 3, which is how much your expenses from it. And that'll be your book balance on hand will be put on line 5. This is the total book balance that'll be carried over till the next fiscal year. And then another tip is to always include in that expenses disbursement, as you saw in that financial form, that includes your outstanding check, because although it's still outstanding and isn't reflected on your bank statement yet, it still is a payment that you've made and still reflects in your expenses. So next you'll look at the year-to-date ending balance on row 17, column F, and you'll verify and make sure that matches the total amount that we calculated from the financial statements. Once you've entered the outstanding checks, you'll go back to the audit form. Once you've answered the outstanding checks from row 18, column 7 on line 7 of the audit form, you'll want to list the date, the check number, the amount of the check, the name, and the phone number of whom the check was made out to. This information must be entered to ensure that the incoming leaders are able to properly reconcile their records. Additionally, if a check remains outstanding, the contact information is readily available for the new leaders to follow up. After the outstanding check information has been completed, subtract the amount on line 7 from the amount on line 6. Excuse me, and you'll enter that on line 8. The amount on line 8 must match the same as the amount as on line 5 to ensure that all financial accounts have been reconciled. If these two amounts are different, you must recheck the outstanding checks and deposits to ensure accurate records. If you need assistance, please reach out to your county council or region rep. So the next section only pertains to those local units whose line 2 is greater than 50,000, if your average gross income over the last 3 years averages out to greater than 50,000. Otherwise, you can just skip that step. And as I mentioned earlier, we will discuss the audit findings later. Well, it's later, so we're going to discuss those now. So considering the following 3 options. Oh, I think we need to move on to the next slide. Okay, the following 3 options, and please only choose one. If the books are correct and the information is correct, just check box number 1. If you found a problem such as missing documents or receipts or no insurance has been purchased, please write your findings and suggestions and include them with the audit, checking that box too. If there were significant problems, you don't have any financial records, or you're missing things that you don't feel that you're doing a fiduciarily responsible or fiscally responsible audit, please check that 3rd box, write up those findings or missing documents, and contact your county council for assistance. The 3 audit committee members must then sign and print their name on the form. If we don't have all 3 members sign, the audit form will be returned to you. Unless you have the professional auditor or CPA has completed your audit, then you would mark that box and then they would sign. Once you've completed the audit, you would return it back to the president for their signature and the treasurer's signature, certifying that the audit has been completed. Then the audit will be uploaded onto the GiveBack's website under the compliance tab, or it can be sent to Florida PTA no later than August 31st each year. You can also send the audit form to the email address at audit@floridapta.org. But the easiest way is to definitely have it put on the GiveBack's website where it's readily available. So now that the audit's complete, you can file the IRS 990. Please do not wait until November 15th. When you have all the documents available to you, then you should be able to file, especially if it's the 990 the postcard. That literally takes 10 minutes, and 7 minutes of those are just waiting for it to be approved. So it does not take very long to complete that 990 postcard. If your gross receipts are over the 50,000, or you normally do the 990 EZ, then make sure that you file it again and reach out to your county council if you need assistance with these forms. Once completed, please upload the accepted copy of the 990 postcard or a complete copy with all schedules of the 990 EZ to your givebacks account under that compliance tab. And now, before we do questions, I do know that earlier today we had a lot of questions on the going back to the membership dues collecting for next year. So I just wanted to take a moment if Heather would speak on that, just in case that may be a question now again, or if it wasn't a question, maybe it'll answer what could have been a future question for how to handle the audit form when it comes to the membership dues that are being paid to the state now for next year, or that are being collected for next year. Heather?
Okay, thank you. Okay, if you collect membership dues now for the 24-25 year, it's fine. You would send the $3.50, the state national dues portion, to the state office. You could do it either by a check. I'm not sure if the give back site will let you do it or not. I have to ask them, but you could send a check to our office. We will cash your check for you. And then those dues are considered deferred until July 1st. So you may not see them reflected in the give back site until July 1st. But when it comes to the audit and paying the dues that people paid you now for next year to the state office, if you submit them to us before July 1st, you will put no outstanding check for that. You won't put that as an outstanding check on the audit. You can include the amount of income collected for dues and expenses paid to state, so book and bank match. Do not include the number of dues paid to state for the audit year. So on that bottom, that line 18 that she was saying, for the 23-24 year, don't include the 24-25 numbers, even though you sent the payment before July 1st. Only include the actual members that you had for the 23-24 year. In the audit report in the general meeting, notify the membership that you've already prepaid your dues to state for the upcoming year for that number of members, so they know it's already been paid and will be reflected in the minutes.
Thank you, Heather.
If you submit your dues for membership after July 1st, the amount paid to Florida PTA will be put on the audit as an outstanding check. Do not include the number of dues paid to state for a previous audit year. In the audit report at the first general meeting, you'll notify membership has been paid and audit has been completed, signed by 3 designees that did not have access to funds, and submitted to Florida PTA. Thank you.
Thank you, Heather. All right, so now we'll take it if we have any questions. Lawrence, if we have any questions in the chat.
I don't see anything posted in the chat, so if anyone had any questions, if you just want to take yourself off mute and ask away.
Hey, I have a question. Where are we able to find these forms?
The audit form and that summary financial worksheet are both on the Florida PTA audit.org website. If you select the PTA leaders tab and you go down to running your PTA, you should see there's a spot that says forms all the way at that bottom. You should have the audit form there. I mean, and I also think it's in a couple places, but I think it's on the bottom of that one, as well as that financial account summary page we put up there for you all today.
Okay, and will you guys be sending out this recording?
Yes, it'll be usually within a couple of days. It'll be on that Florida PTA under the events tab, and Road to
Okay.
Success. It'll be out there too.
Okay, great.
And I will say that we are in the process of revamping the audit form a little bit, trying to make it a little more, I guess, a little easier, as we know that there's been a lot of issues with the bottom of page 1 currently says incoming, outgoing. We don't know which treasurer is supposed to sign this or what. We're kind of removing that piece to make it a little clearer, and we're kind of breaking it up so that hopefully when obviously at convention or right before leadership convention, it'll be in the new kit of materials or whatever, so that hopefully it'll be a little easier for you. And we will include the fillable new form on the website as well.
Great, thank you.
Any other
Right.
questions?
Did you have
I joined in a little late, and I'm new to being president PTA. How often are audits?
The audits are completed annually.
So every year, okay.
Every year, or they're also completed, they can be an interim audit if any one of your bank signers resigns, your treasurer resigns, anytime you're changing anything with the bank account. And if your treasurer does resign, or president, if they're on the bank account, then you'll need to complete that audit, and nothing can be done with the new treasurer until that audit is complete.
Okay, so we have our treasurer and our president changing for next year. Like I'm coming in as president, and then our treasurer is also changing, so we'll have to do it then.
Yeah, so after, because you should be having elections, and if you're having elections, then all the
Yep.
books, they get, usually your new person takes office and they have to turn over the books within 10 days. Your audit committee will then, between July 1st and August 31st, they'll complete that audit before you kind of take over. All positions except for that treasurer's position, as it's stated in the bylaws, they take on the responsibility, but the treasurer doesn't take on that role until the audit is actually completed.
Okay, thank you.
To add to that, the people who are actually conducting the audit committee is, can only be 3 people who have not had access to the bank account.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Sandra, you have a question?
It's not a question, it's a comment. You may have missed it, but the last speaker said because they're new, an audit needs to be done. I think you need to emphasize that an audit is done every year, even if signers are not changing.
Yes, yeah, just like Sandra just said, yes, every year, no matter what, an audit is always completed. Even if it's going to be the old treasurer is being reelected for the new year, an audit still has to be completed. And we do highly recommend that any new treasurers that are coming on, that they serve as a member on that audit committee. It helps them to get familiar with the audit form and all those documents and records that they'll need to be keeping throughout the year for their audit at the end of the year.
Okay, thank you so much for the information.
All right, Kimberly, I think in the earlier session, there was a question referencing the use of Cash App. And someone had asked, were there alternatives that they could use instead of Cash App?
So our biggest thing is to say that you want to be fiduciarily responsible. You never want to leave it in the hands of any one individual, which is why the IRS and Florida PTA require that president, treasurer, secretary. You want to, make sure that you're doing everything in the best practices. What we would highly recommend is the great platform of Member Hub that you all get for free, has a store, has auction abilities. You can run fundraisers, and it can collect your payments through Stripe, and it documents, keeps a log of everything. And it's not tied to any one individual, except, however, I will say that when you're changing on that Member Hub site, or what, at the end of the year, when your treasurer is changing, that treasurer does need to turn over and change it to the new treasurer, because it is just like any of the individual ones that is also connected to their cell phone individually, unfortunately. But there are records through that. It's hard to say when you have somebody's individual Cash App, that how can you go back if you're the next year's board and ever get documentation of what was purchased, or where what funds came in, what funds went out. But Member Hub does allow that platform and has those financial records for you. So we definitely encourage using Member Hub through that. I know even through Square, I still have a Square on my phone that, although it's connected to the PTA bank account, occasionally I get an alert, and I've reached out to those presidents and treasurers and said, hey, keep going to my phone. And they're like, oh, it don't matter. I'm like, oh, one day it's going to matter. So, but we definitely, I mean, if you, not a lot of, I know that Zelle sometimes has options through the banking account where you can Zelle payments, and those are tracked. And you can have a financial record of those as well. But I do know that through some institutions, they require you to download the Zelle app, which does not correlate to a business. They don't allow businesses on Zelle to have that account. And I guess they know it through the debit card. So, right now, that's kind of, unless National comes out with something new that we, can use. I'm not sure of any other apps that aren't individually tied to a specific person's email or phone number at this time, other than Member Hub.
I do have a question. You just mentioned Zelle, and we have Zelle, and how people pay is directly to the Coral Sunset PTA, and then it goes right to our bank account. So you're saying the bank shouldn't have done that? Did I misunderstand
No.
you? Oh,
If Zelle is perfectly acceptable, because Zelle does keep a record. You know who it's coming from, and it's going right to that account.
Exactly.
And Zelle is connected to the PTA bank account, not through your phone, so to speak. Like if I have Cash App, that's connected to my phone number or my personal email. And even if it is connected to the PTA email, if some reason that email isn't transferred the following year and you're making a new one and now it's PTA president 1 at Gmail, then you're still not getting back access to that stuff without your previous board giving it to you. Whereas Zelle, from bank to bank, you're verifying who that person is, and the transaction history is always there. We're not looking to a previous board member, hey, can you print me out
Right.
your Cash App statements to see who went through what? You have that right there on that bank statement through the account.
exactly. Okay, I just wanted to double check what you said. Thank you.
I do have another question about the email. We are back new. We just became a new board again last year. And so we can make a PTA email that can be passed on to different presidents. Is that correct?
Absolutely. We do encourage that you have that PTA president, PTA treasurer, that generic email that can be moved from each person. And we also encourage, be sure that you're writing all those passwords down and that the board is aware of that in case, we never know what's going to happen. Somebody could move and lose their documents. It's best to have either 1 or 2 places where that information can be found by your EC so that everybody can ensure that the information is being passed and you don't lose those emails and passwords, especially
Okay.
for things like your insurance and things.
And do you have any recommendations on what the email should be?
I don't necessarily have a recommend. I've seen in those situations, they may abbreviate, and for like a lot and child might be LCE, president, at Gmail, or and then you may have LCE treasurer at Gmail, just a kind of a generic, maybe that gives them their, student involvement, for your local unit, just to
Yeah.
get confused.
Yeah, we've had issues with past presidents actually stealing money from our accounts. So we have not chosen to do anything with like Cash App or Venmo or anything like that because we're trying to be cautious, I guess. And so, yeah, having an email that's not our personal email would be very helpful.
Well, you can always reach out to the county council too for assistance with they may have better suggestions.
Ours was,
Okay,
I'm sorry, ours was very simple. It was just coralsunsetpta@gmail.com. So it wasn't to the president or anything like that. I guess that's okay, right?
Yeah, definitely. If you have a general, kind of like an info@Coral
Yeah.
Set, kind of thing, and then definitely a general one where they're, at least at the very minimum that your 3 officers, have that password and are able to all kind of keep track of that. And we would hope that you can trust each other, to do the right thing and make sure that the emails stay there, and then you have that for your record too.
Right.
absolutely. Thank you.
All right, Kimberly, there was a question from Brandy, and I think it's referencing the forms that are on the site. And she just want to know, when will they be updated? The audit form that's on the site says 2022 to 2023.
Yes, we'll be updating those hopefully within the next couple, I'm working on it now. So hopefully soon I'll have it. My goal is to have it before the end of the fiscal year, June 30th. But it'll definitely be in the kit of materials, which I'm not exactly sure when that's coming out. But it'll definitely be ready for that. Let's just
Right.
give myself a time. I'll just have it done by the end of the month, right?
All right. Sandra?
We've been talking about losing access to passwords and accounts and things. Could Florida PTA consider being our Iron Mountain, where we could perhaps send you a document to keep on file with this information, should the officers fly away and we lose it all?
I mean, that's a very good idea. I really don't have a 100% answer for that. I think that's a fantastic idea. I can't speak for Florida PTA, but that's definitely something I can ask about and let you know.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments?
Well, if there are no other questions, and I just wanted to say, because I failed to say it earlier, but want to make sure that you guys join us for next week's Road to Success with our Florida PTA Treasurer, Jude Bruno, for his finance and summer budgets on May 8th. Hope to see you there. And then we'll let you have it back, Lawrence.
All right.
Before you do that, Lawrence, if anybody's already had their elections, because I know it's either happened, we're in May now, or it's happening now. Once those newly elected officers, once your elections are done, I should say, and go ahead and go to our website, floridapta.org. There's a big green button on the right-hand side that says new and returning officers. Click here. Go ahead and fill that in, and we'll go ahead and make sure that it's a seamless transition on give back. So when the current officers are done on July 1st, the new ones can hit the ground running and don't have any problems, don't have to message us or be like, why don't I have access anymore? Just make sure that you send us your new officers. That way there's no problems. And that is all. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
So thank you, Heather. Thank you, Kimberly, for a great presentation. And we just wanted to take a quick moment to do some general announcements. And to start, for those of you that may have showed up late, the session was recorded and it will be available on the website for review and sharing with your board members. I would say give it a couple of days, for it to pop up. And we'll start on announcements with Denise with, I guess, the awards.
Oh, thank you, Lauren. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for attending tonight. I'm Denise Nicholas. I'm your Florida PTA Awards Chair. And I just want to remind you, we only have a little bit over 4 hours left to please get your awards applications in. They are due tonight. So please, as soon as we're done with this amazing Zoom, and thank you so much, Kimberly and Lawrence and Heather, it's been amazing. If you could please, after we're done with this Zoom, log on to floridapta.org and get in some awards applications. Only takes a minute, and you got to be in it to win it, my friends. So please apply.
All right, thank you, Denise. And just as a reminder to everyone, Florida PTA started an African American webinar series that started last week. The next session is on the 2nd, which is tomorrow at 7 p.m. I posted a document in the chat, and I'm going to do it again, that has all of this information for you so that you can share with your membership. But Dr. Nancy Lothar, who's our legislation chair for Florida PTA, and a number of other experts are providing some very quality information to kind of supplement what we do not receive here in Florida as it relates to African American history. So please share it. Lots of good stuff. Last week was great. I even learned some things that I didn't know, about the state of Florida. So it's a great opportunity to learn, to digest, as well as to share it out. The next person up is Melanie with some announcements.
Thank you, Lawrence. And question, the African American series, was that recorded and is shared out?
Yes, it is recorded. And if you go to the website, which is in the document, you can view the session from last week.
Yeah, it was indeed mind-blowing. You all need to look at it and attend next week. It was great. Thanks, Lawrence. On May 4th, this Saturday, we are having our reflection ceremony here in Orlando. at the Lake Nona High School. If you're nearby and want to take a road trip, please come on over. We start at noon, should end by about 1:32. And just remember, for your School of Excellence, your final report is due June 15th. So go ahead and deploy the last survey if you haven't done so already, and get that final report in so you can get that esteemed designation, National PTA School of Excellence. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you, Melanie. Now, as everyone on here knows, the countdown for Teacher Appreciation Week has started, and that is going to be May 6th through May 10th. For those of you that may not know, National PTA has a Thank a Teacher toolkit that includes many free resources such as thank you card certificates, flyers, and social media graphics to help all of us show our appreciation and thank you for the teachers that are in our schools as well as in our lives. So please check out the link and utilize these free resources to help promote the great work that our teachers do in our school settings. And in about 2.5 months, we'll be having our annual leadership convention, which will be held July 28th through 21st at the beautiful Omni Orlando Resort at Champions Gate. And if you attended with us last year, it is the same location. And there is a lot that's happening, especially this year. So at Florida PTA's Leadership Convention, for those of you who have not attended, you can expect to see a number of workshops every day, general sessions where we see our guest speakers as well as take care of the business of PTA. There will be voting for our next executive committee this year. There are plenty of networking opportunities because it is the one time that all of us from around the state, about 800 to 1,000 of us, get together in one location to do what we do, to take care of our kids. So a lot of family engagement, a lot of networking, a lot of sharing of resources. We also have an exhibitor and resource fair where you can bring back programs and different things to your local units, for with respect to your calendar for the upcoming year. We also will have our award celebration, a number of keynote speakers. This year, one of our keynotes will be the Florida 2024 Teacher of the Year, as well as Anna King, our immediate past president for Florida PTA. And the biggest thing about Leadership Convention is fun. There's a big pool, there's golf, and a bunch of other things. We're right there, in the middle, close to Disney World. So there's a lot to do in that area to relax as well as have fun. Now, the early bird rate is $130, and it's good through the end of May. And we also, as with most Florida PTA events, it is a family-friendly event. And so there's a number of different student registration types in case you want to bring your children. So please visit our website to get more information and view the various options that are available to you for the Leadership Convention. Now, I can't go without speaking about Leadership Convention without mentioning the 3 big things that we do there. Those are our ticketed events. One is our awards and recognition celebration. Denise has kind of talked about that. And that is where we celebrate the wonderful and great work that you as our PTAs do throughout the state. And I have to say that there's some amazing things that go on, and it is our opportunity to recognize you. And there's nothing better than saying your PTA name, but starting it with award winning. That brings clout and a lot of good recognition. We also have our DEIJ awards event where we talk about the many different things and recognize the work that our PTAs do within DEIJ. And of course, when we talk about fun, there's Florida PTA's Got Talent. If you remember the Gong Show from back in the day, it's kind of what it is, but it's to raise money for our kids. And as we always say, what happens at PTA's Got Talent stays at PTA's Got Talent. So that should tell you what kind of event and how much fun we have there. And with that, I just want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. And we'll see you next week or hopefully tomorrow night at the African American webinar series, for our Road to Success. With that, y'all have a good night, and thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you, Lawrence, and thank you, Melanie. Appreciate it.
Okay. So, Kimberly, call